I guess, catastrophizing or, managing your worry and how having a celebrant helps with that. Or if you are a catastrophe lover, I can't think of it. I follow a lady called Hayley Morris on Instagram. She's from the Isle of Wight. We go to the Isle of Wight quite a lot. So I started following her because she was an islander, but she's super hilarious. And she's got, not the alter ego, but she talks to like her brain. It says brain, and it gives you all the worry, all the ridiculousness. Like today's one, she's in the car wash and brain was like, open the windows. She's like, no. And I'm sure, I don't know whether you get it even as a planner. Jess, as a wedding planner, does your head do this as well? You'll start planning and then brain says, what if the ceiling falls in? Or what if the venue catches fire? Or what if, I realise I catastrophe to a like filmic creative level. Like when I'm driving in the car, I picture the car crashing, it rolling over, and then the scene. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I do go straight to hardcore catastrophe. I don't go, oh gosh, I've scratched the car. I go to full on roll and tumble. So I have this brain. I've been following Hayley Morris, who does this to like hilarious level. And I thought, I'm sure my brides do this. They're very cool about it and they don't message me and say, my brain's doing this. But I know I did it. And I remember really vividly crying at my final dress fitting. And the lady was like, are you okay? And I was like, just what if he doesn't turn up? Because I hadn't gone to what if my day doesn't work out. I was like, what if there's no groom? Like I went there. Because, the day not rolling, it just wasn't not going to happen because I run events and I put shows on, and that stage managing version just wasn't an issue. It was that there's not actually going to be a wedding. It wasn't if the wedding went badly, it was whether there was actually even a wedding. Jess, what have you written? Yes, exactly the same. Well, yeah, okay. So with a shoot, you go into that, well, what if nobody turns up? Or what if the venue's locked? So if you're a couple and you're wedding planning, if you get a planner, Jess is a planner, the Italian dream. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I know lots of planners. We've got a great planning community as well with the Celebrants. As far as I know, all the planners that I've worked with love a Celebrant because it is a very weird thing when you spend all this time planning. You get to the final, like the doors open, the ceremony starts, and the planner and the bride just walk into the unknown. Into the unknown. I think, why would you do that? If you catastrophize in your head, why would you walk into the unknown the moment the wedding really starts? So if you are a warrior, if you do have brain, if you do catastrophize, really, I think a celebrant is an answer for you. It's definitely a solution to that problem because we have a rehearsal, we go through the script. Because of my theatre background, I do put stage directions in the script. I'll say to like the suppliers. So when I've done weddings with planners, I'll say at this point that's your 5-minute call, and they're like, oh, brilliant, perfect, thank you. The photographer, I will say, when they're walking up the aisle and the bride gets to the 4th row from the back, I'm going to say to the groom, you can turn around now, or the other bride, or whoever is the couple that we've got. And I will say, okay, now. And the photographer knows that I'm going to cue bride number 2 or the groom or whoever it is to then turn around so they catch that shot. So all that worry of, oh my God, I really want that shot. What if I don't get that shot because I've been addicted to Pinterest for 2 years? You don't need to, because having a celebrant will stop that happening to a point. If you're a natural warrior, there are steps that you can do to a point, and there are suppliers you can put in place, like having a planner, like having a celebrant, where you can manage that fear and you can manage that catastrophe. Because I do think we all get it. Mine goes into, I think I did quite a lot of counter-terrorism, and I go in, I used to do my pre-theatre checks, and I was checking for a bomb. When I'm audience watching, I know I did a launch of the Royal Festival Hall after it reopened, like 17 years ago, after its refurbishment, and I was looking for terrorists. I was like going, what does a terrorist look like? They just look uncomfortable in a crowd. They look, because you can tell, having been in the pub and stuff, you just can tell how people move, and if people are moving funny, that catches my attention. So I go there. Like I never go on the tube, the London Underground, for those of you not in England and knowing what I'm talking about, not the subway or whatever, the tube is the London Underground. I won't ever go on the tube in flip-flops, because if it blows up, I don't want to walk 2.5 miles down a track with open toes. So I always have, oh hi Fussy, I always have proper shoes when I'm travelling in London, just in case I get blown up and I need to escape. So there will always be a catastrophe scenario, because, in the Caribbean, the volcano's erupting at the moment. That's a proper catastrophe. That is out your hands, and that is how big it can go. But you have to kind of go, is it really likely? Is my wedding venue on a volcano? No. Okay. The severity of that happening is really bad, had I been there. The likelihood of that happening where I am in Surrey at Farnham Castle isn't. So, no, your venue isn't going to explode. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I know some of our brains go there. So in a way to control the brain, catastrophe, managing that fear, for me, is to sort of do like a 20-second risk assessment. Hi Louisa, is it likely? If it is likely, is it severe? If it's severe and likely, maybe I need to rethink my plan. But because I'm constantly doing those risk assessments in my head, I would never put myself in a situation where there is a likelihood of catastrophe and the severity of that catastrophe is catastrophic. I wouldn't put myself in that situation. Because I've been doing risk assessments since since 1999. So I know it's just constant in my head. So if you are, it doesn't even have to be a wedding, with naming ceremonies, with funerals, particularly because I do a lot of natural burials. Oh hi Nove, hi Stitty. Because I also do natural burials, we are outside a lot. Especially the last year, the ceremonies weren't in the venue, didn't have a roof. They were outside in the meadow, or they were outside in the woodland. And so there was that thought of, oh gosh, what if the weather is? And you think, well, the weather will be what the weather will be, but I live in the southeast of England, and really, it's never going to be catastrophic, hopefully, thus far in our lifetime. There will be bad patches. I have done, I did a funeral at Clandon Natural Burial Ground, so Simon or Christina, if you come on and you listen to this, Christina was on duty at the day with me, and I was literally at a 45-degree angle trying to lay this wreath of flowers at the edge of the coffin, at the edge of the hole of the plot, and just thinking, I really hope the wind doesn't change direction right now, because again my head went into catastrophe, and I went into that Ab Fab episode where she literally just falls in. And the wind was coming at me. I was leaning into it. It was a 45-degree angle. I suddenly went into my filmic head, and I went into Eddie and... What's she called? Oh, the Ab Fab people. What are they called? Eddie and... Sweetie. Can't even remember her name. Patsy. Just falling in. So then I thought, oh my God, this is really an appropriate time to smile, but it just came into my head, and I know that was a coping mechanism, because I was like, that's the worst thing that could happen. It's not going to happen, which is why I'm leaning into the wind. I know I'm at a 45-degree angle, but I know I'm not going to fall in, because I moved to where I was going to lay the wreath, because if I'd lay the wreath at the toes, if I was toe end, I was going to get pushed by the wind, and it was a gale. So I moved round, just because I'm constantly doing risk assessments in my head, moved round to the head end, and lay the flowers there. And I could see the groundsman just kind of thinking, oh, good shout, good call. So I've also been, lots of you know that I've been doing some mindset work, and I've got a mindset coach because I'm trying to get my head out of my not having a boss scenario. Because I think I've worked for people, like, you know, had a manager and then their managers had a da-da-da-da. And actually to go, oh, I'm the chief exec of my own company. Huh. To get in my own chief exec head, I suppose. Where does my catastrophe take me? And actually it doesn't. But rather than me keep writing the worst case scenario, because I've done counter-terrorism, evacuations, police work, police raids, I've had people have strokes, I've had people have heart attacks. Like, my experience is quite catastrophic when things go wrong. You know, there's hostage situations, like there's been some situations that have been quite disastrous. So when I was doing this kind of fear exercise of going, you know, face the fear, I faced the fear, and I was like, that's still a possibility, that could still happen. So actually it didn't help me, it really made me get way more anxious, because all it was doing was reinforcing the fact that might happen. So then I had to realise for myself in my chief exec head that I have a very different sense of catastrophe to your average person who's burying their loved one, or your average couple getting married, or your average new parents. Like, their catastrophe is the baby does the most almighty nappy fill as the moment the parents are doing their really heartfelt vows and the granny's in pieces and all you can hear is like, that would be really, like, that's the worry. But then when it happens, you just giggle. I mean, there's some right stinkers as you're doing vows, and the baby's like, and you're trying to get these really amazing photos, and the photographer's just laughing, and I'm looking at them going, yes, should we just pause? Let's just pause. And we look at the baby like, you done? And the baby's like, ah. And then we carry on. So that level of catastrophe is more normal. And I think, well, I know from talking to my couples, I'm quite an unusual celebrant in that, for me, the love story is everything. It is the naming, it is the wedding, it is the funeral, it's the whole umbrella. So when a bride's saying to me, I'm getting myself in a bit of a pickle because of this, and they pause, they're like, oh, what have you done this week? And I was like, buried a 5-year-old. And they were like, oh, yeah, do you know what? It's really not that bad. And they quite like the harsh reality check of me. Not that I give it to them in a harsh way, it's just factual, you know, how was your week? And I was like, shocking. But it does keep my couples grounded. It does keep that sense of catastrophe at bay, because I am a really strong reality check for people, because I am doing the whole circle of life. And so I think if you're prone to catastrophizing things, I really, really, really do think a celebrant would really help. Particularly me, because my catastrophe is always going to be way more than yours. So I'm really good for a sense of perspective of that yours is okay, really. Anti-celebrancy, no, I 100% agree. The love story is everything. Yes. Do you know what's interesting? Now the world's opening up a bit. I don't know if you get this in Ireland, but I am all about the love story in every which way. And I want to organise a styled shoot for, not a fun funeral, I don't want to put the fun back in funeral because it didn't leave, but giving funerals character and charisma and a bit of joy, and remembering that it's a love story. But venues are they're like, oh no, we do weddings. And it's like, I mean, have I still got Louisa on here? Glass House, you still with me, lovely? So the Glass House just seems to have this really healing, warm back wall, sunshine. You know, the Victorians as engineers were incredible, just like amazing. And, you know, when I first walked into the Glass House, I was like, oh, can I do funerals in here, please? And Louisa isn't shying away from it. She's like, I want to serve those that want to celebrate love. And I was like, we're going to be friends. So that's really nice. But I don't know, are you finding that that's the kind of funeral I would like? Well, sweetie, let's chat. Let's, maybe 70 years from now, let's take some collagen and keep ourselves young. There's 50 years left in us at least. But yes, the kind of funeral definitely that I would like is one that is a love story, because I see that, there's one in, one out. When grandma dies, it turns out that cousin Sarah is actually 6 weeks pregnant. I just trust the cycle of life. And I do kind of emulate that with my couple, so that when they are getting their knickers in the twist about wedding planning, they do talk to me and they go, how's your week? And they genuinely do want me to answer, because I'm like, yeah, fine. Told some lovely love stories about some lovely people, and they're like, good, okay, yes, whatever is their drama, so and so's had a falling out with yada yada, and actually it'll all come out in the wash and it doesn't really matter. Louise Arby's for Glasshouse, thumbs up. Yes, exactly. So yeah, I guess in a nutshell, people always catastrophize things. You've always got brain. I got the inspiration for today from Hayley Morris on Instagram, because her brain goes exactly where mine goes. But keeping it at bay is Oh, hi Claire. I'm just chatting about the fear thing. So Claire Nichols is my mindset coach, and we've been chatting. And I was saying about the fear exercise, and that it didn't work for me, because it just reaffirms all this catastrophe that could happen. But for my couples, it's a really good reality check. So they're like, do you know what? It's not going to be that bad. Because I'm like, well, you could die. And they're like, oh yeah, it's not going to be that bad. And I was like, no, it's not going to be that bad. Or the venue could blow up. It's not going to be that bad. Okay, fine. So I do think for couples, for clients, for new parents, for people that are adopting, for people that are moving home, whatever it is, when you're going to do a rite of passage that you want to celebrate and mark, either on your own or with a little gang or with a full big fat party, at some point everyone will catastrophize something. But having a celebrant will keep that to a minimum, because, particularly me, it's the whole story of life. It's the beginning, the middle, and the end is the beginning. And that's why in a wedding, you have a wedding band, because it is the cycle of life, and the love doesn't die, even though the body does. But your wedding vows only last until death do us part, because the minute you're dead, you're not longer married, but it doesn't mean the love dies. You're not in love till death do you part, you're married till death do you part, because the marriage is a legally binding contract. So to give people permission to love again is also really important. For me, that was my fear, was that either Joe wasn't going to turn up, or when I became a mum, I was like, what if he dies? I can't cope, blah, blah, blah. Because I went straight to, he's going to die. Which we all are, but I'd rather, the baby didn't die the minute it was born. But that's where my head goes, because that's what I experienced, because they're burials that I do. So work out what works for you. If you're a warrior, it might be talking about it. It might be doing, as Claire recommends to me, is journaling it. After I was journaling it and doing this Face the Fear, I realised it didn't help. So I was like, actually, what do I know to be true? And do I know it to be true? And so for me, I have to stick with the truth. The truth. The truth will always out. Not my imagination, not in my own head. Go to my risk assessment. And I think that's because I've always been practical. I've always hosted, I've always run venues, I've always facilitated, I've always been in customer care, and I've always kind of had a security edge to things. So I've always naturally done risk assessments. So doing the fear thing just freaked my brain out. But doing the risk assessments and being in the action, that's why having a wedding rehearsal will absolutely blow the fear out the water, because you're like, oh, I walk in at this bar of music, and that's when the page boy's going to come, and that's when Granny's going to do her reading, and that's where I'm going to stand when this happens. And you walk it through, and you get security in the familiar. So when I explain this to the venues, most of the venues will always let us do a rehearsal, because I say they'll get security in the familiarity. So we need to do the rehearsal on site. Very occasionally a venue will say no, and then I won't use them again. So there is security in the familiarity. the action will take away the fear because you're in it and you can see it. Because for me, as a creative, my imagination is way more powerful than my action. So when I'm in action, my imagination's put back in bay. When I'm creating and when I'm writing, my imagination's on fire again. So I will love writing my ceremonies, and that's where my power is. It's in my action. So I had a really powerful session today, as you can tell, and Claire's going to come on board. Nave, what have you said? I tend to rock up drunk and late. To what? Not to your own service. Oh, to like other people's ceremonies. Is that? Oh, or is that your imagination? Is that your brain, Nave? Are you still with me? Oh, the dog at the door. I didn't see where you put that comment in. I intend to rock up drunk. So those of you looking, Anu Celebrancy is Nave. She's a celebrant in Ireland. To my funeral, you're going to turn up to your funeral drunk. Lovely. Drunk and late. Drunk and late. Very good. Each to their own. I'll put that in your notes. So yes, don't worry about worrying. Have your worry out loud. Work out how it makes you feel. Does it make you feel more nervous? Do you feel more safe about it? For me, it's the waiting that makes me nervous, and that's why I didn't enjoy being engaged, because my head went into what ifs, and my brain took over, and I catastrophized it, and I imagined that Joe didn't turn up, and so I was in tears at my wedding dress fitting because I'd gone there. And then I just said to the venue, I was like, I need rehearsal. I need to know who's going to turn up. And he did. And I was like, you're going to stand there, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, this is going to happen. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. I was like, okay, good. So there we go. At your funeral. Cool. Right. Any questions? Do a hashtag replay. Hopefully that's helpful. Next week, I'm going to stick with the action, just because that's where I am at the moment. And I said, I think it was last Thursday, I did a little live on my stories to say that I'd just done a 2K run, because I went to fit into my wedding outfit, because it's now 8 weeks to my first wedding, and my shoes fit, because 3 lockdowns don't affect my shoe size, but my suit didn't fit. But I've done 2K every day, and I'm back into my slim fit suit. Woo! Oh, Lucy, hi, lovely. You just missed my main bit. I'm just rounding up. So next week I'm talking with Stable Fit, they're up the road from me. They've got horses and breeding horse and all's going on, but they've got a spare stable, and the stable is now an outdoor gym. And we're talking about how action and moving can help your nerves, can help your nervous system, can help will get you wedding ready. But it's also really, really helpful with grief. And a lot of my clients turn to running. That's a whole nother story. So next week we're talking about how exercise helps with your mindset in anything, in decatastrophizing anything, whether it's weddings or funerals, or being a carer. The one after that, I think I'm going to do about dementia and dealing with ceremonies with dementia, because that's a whole nother thing. So yeah, lots of conversations. My shoes also fit. Well done, Lucy. Brilliant. Leggings are also amazing. And I've got Elsa ceremonies. I've just been talking about grief ceremonies. We're going to touch it more next week when I'm talking about exercise and action and dealing with grief. Get your running shoes on or go sit on a pony. Take care. Lots of love, everyone. Bye.